Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bill Levinson, Managing Partner with Levinson and Associates. With me today, we have Joseph Loughran, our Marketing Vice President, and then we have a special guest speaker. I like to call him the Premium Finance Guru. He's going to be joining us in about 5 to 10 minutes or so. And you're going to learn all about two awesome new platforms for premium finance, okay? We have a lot of agents on the call, in fact, a record number, and two webcasts going on simultaneously, everyone marketing the platform. So great stuff. We want to thank everyone for taking the time. I always like to say, take out a fresh piece of paper, okay? We don't want any old notes from a different webinar or presentation because you're going to learn a lot, and I want you to remember most of what you're going to learn today. This will change your year and ultimately your life if you have a few good cases, and I mean that. And I think when we're done with the presentation, you'll see exactly why I said that. You're also probably scratching your head saying, you know, this sounds and looks great, and I would love to make a $200,000-$300,000 commission off one case, but where do I find these prospects, right? I mean, that's the lottery ticket. So what we did is we have a platform that we put together that we're going to go over as soon as our guru is done speaking, and we're going to show you how you can go into our system and you can enter in certain criteria. Let's say young professionals, white collar, anywhere between the ages 30 and 55, and you can actually dial in what a combined household income search you would like to see. Okay, you can say, I want a list of names that all make between, you know, let's say 100,000 and 300,000 of income in this specific zip code, this age and gender, and the system will give you 1,000 names, numbers, emails, addresses, complimentary every single month, so you can go start marketing to them. And what we did is put together a marketing library of different material that all relates to premium finance. So take advantage of our tools and technology, and you can start to spread the word. I would also use social media, of course, your website. I would start to network. I would speak to any good referral sources, okay? If you know any great CPAs, estate planning attorneys, any good doctors. You know, we have an agent that works with a local hospital here that has a great in, and he wrote, in fact, 3 premium finance cases in the last 6 months, and he's crushing it. So there's a lot of opportunity here, and as we go, just jot down some notes and names of anybody you think you want to bring this up to. My goal is, by the time we're done, that everybody has at least the basic A, B's, and C's of knowledge about premium finance and the 2 programs we're going over today. Okay, let's talk about what's new here at Levinson. By the way, what's not listed is we're rolling out a new lead program that are actual live transfers, okay, for 25 bucks each. So that's about half the price is what I'm not even going to mention the name, but there's a big vendor. All they do is live transfers. Supposedly they were the best at it. This new company we've teamed up with literally charges half the price. Definitely worth a shot. We're going to have a launch webinar within the next month, and we'll go over the new $25 live voice transfers. Okay, on the left side, we have updated and finalized the Levinson Marketing Playbook. Okay, now this is great, and the reason why is, okay, by the way, we now have 20 employees here at Levinson, and when we're training new marketers, okay, or even existing marketers, we have so many tools and platforms and technology that sometimes it's hard for us to keep track. And the way I look at it is say, hey, if we can't barely keep track of everything, how is the agent going to understand everything? So we all put our heads together and came up with this great idea. It's an infographic. It's just like one big picture. You click on it, okay, and that's an example on the left side, and it has every single platform, tool, tech that we offer, all numbered, itemized. You can click on it, and it gives you a little breakdown explanation. And what's great about this is, and just keep this in mind, if you have any downline agents, okay, that also get a little mind boggled. There's so many tools and pieces. You can just send this to them by email or the link on our website. They can click on it and see everything that we offer at their fingertips, okay? So a great, great tool, and we're keeping this updated in real-time fashion. That's the marketing playbook. Joe, let's send that out to everyone after today's call. In the middle section, every month we put together a live 411 newsletter, okay? Now, we just launched October. We talk about everything that's hot, what's not, basically everything in the life annuity and supplemental world in one 8-minute video. Check that out when you get a chance. It's on our website as a pop-up. In fact, you'll have to X out of it to move forward because we want everyone to check it out for October. Obviously, a great month. It's also my birthday, October 20th, so I'm expecting an email, happy birthday email from everyone. Also, I just want to hope everyone has a great October and wish you a happy Halloween. All right, right side, Legacy Armor platform. That is our latest. Think of a online safe deposit box, okay? I love this. It's free for all Levinson agents to enroll. And it gives you the chance to make a renewal stream of marketing dollars for the next 20 years. And if you're enrolled in the third bucket, you can give out this free online safe deposit box. We call it a vault, to every one of your clients, even if they don't buy anything from you. It gives you an opportunity to sit down with them online, over the phone, or in person, and you can help them upload their life insurance information, documents, annuities, last wishes. If they want to have, let's say, 4 pictures from last year's Thanksgiving, and they want to upload those pictures in their vault because they want their beneficiaries to see this when they pass on, everything is at their fingertips. It's a great way for you to keep your name in front of your clients forever. Okay, and think about like seminars, webinars, appointments. You give this to everyone that attends for free. Okay, it is the ultimate door opener, great hook, and it will increase your webinar or meeting attendance. Okay, we have videos on that we can show you as well. And don't forget about the new live transfer lead program at $25 a lead. So that is an awesome, awesome deal. Definitely worth trying them out. Okay, the next slide here, right before we introduce our guest speaker, is the Bill Levinson Experience podcast. The reason why I want to bring this up, we have moved up, okay, think about this. There's thousands and thousands of podcasts, especially in the insurance marketing business space. So we went from like 1252 about 6 weeks ago. We're now in the low 300s. So we are getting very, very highly rated reviews from all over on all of our different podcast channels. Check this out when you get a chance. You can listen in your car, from your iPhone, from your Android, from our website, on YouTube. It's all free. Once a month, we pick a different guest speaker. In fact, yesterday, and this is the reason why I wanted to bring this up, we invited the owner of North Star, okay, who we're talking to today. Kim Coulter was our guest speaker, and we dive into the whole premium finance world. He talks about how he got started. We give some great tips and sales strategies. So it is a awesome 55-minute podcast episode. We are launching it today. So check that out when you get a chance. It's also great to listen in the car on the way to an appointment, or, you know, if you're doing a walk or running or jogging, if you want something to listen to that can keep you motivated and inspired, these are some great episodes, okay? We have Emmanuel, one of our top GAs, on the bottom. He's also on this call today. We have Paul Feldman, the owner of Insurance Newsnet magazine. We have the Forbes 400, Jeff Levitetz, made it 4 years in a row. The Legacy Armor CEO, Sahar. We have Gary Vaynerchuk, the social media guru. So check it out when you get a chance. I promise you will walk away with some great, great nuggets of information. Okay, moving forward here, I want to introduce our guest speaker. Okay, now we partner exclusively with North Star for all premium finance options, and Dale Humphrey is a true guru in the space. In fact, he helped a huge bank develop a premium finance program. In my opinion, there's no one better. than him and his company North Star. So he's got a great story to tell. We have two programs, one starting at just $1 million of net worth and then one from $5 million and up. Most important, okay, there's a lot of competitors that are trying to enter the space. They're splitting cases. They're claiming to be premium finance professionals. We don't do any of that here. With the large cases, $5 million and up, you get 100% of your commission. For the smaller cases, it's a 15% loss of commission, okay, for the $1 million and up for as far as net worth is concerned. That platform itself, they have a patent on. You cannot find it anywhere else. I am so excited about this, and I know I'm ranting. Without further ado, I want to introduce our guest speaker, Dale Humphrey, CMO with North Star. Dale, you there?
I am. Thank you so much. I don't even know if I have to say anything after all that, Bill.
Thanks, Dale. I appreciate it.
So we got my screen up, I hope?
Yes, we do.
So today, as Bill indicated, we're going to talk about premium finance, but really a different form of it, and a methodology to bring finance into a market space which has never been really customarily served all that well, if at all, because financing overall in our business has been around for quite a while. It's not really picked up in terms of, I think, significant volume, probably for the last 15 years or so. But it's something that most agents, most advisors consider being relegated to very high net worth individuals. Our average net worth on what we refer to as our large case platform is $12 million plus. The premiums are multi-$100,000 premiums. Other cases, without question, are hard to get over the goal line. They involve a lot of detail, as you would expect with cases of that size, not only just from the base underwriting standpoint, the life insurance company, but also from the financial underwriting standpoint as well on the bank side. So we stepped back and we wanted to put something together that would be applicable to a much wider range of individuals, and also bring it down into death benefit solves and premium solves that you would see on a fairly regular basis. And what we refer to it as a new IRA. And when we say IRA, we are not talking about an individual retirement account. We're talking about the Insured Retirement Advantage. And it does combine high cash value life insurance, and the focal point of what we do here overall in the financing world is certainly index universal life insurance policies. There's other policies that can be utilized, but the thrust of what we'll be referring to, not only from an overview perspective, but also when I get into a few mechanics and a few technical aspects, will be index universal life insurance. And as I indicated, this is for a different client segment. These are for people that customarily would not be even thinking about or applying for the larger case financing due to a combination of the net worth situation and also income and other considerations. However, as I will underscore throughout the presentation, is that these are good cases. These are still large cases. They're just not the jumbo massive cases that we see in the traditional financing area. Just a quick overview, and for some of you, this is going to be very much kind of a review and a general discussion. Some of you, this may not be. So I've got to kind of take a broad swipe at some of these topics and then move ourselves into some more specifics. But basically, life insurance premium finance is that somebody's going to enter a transaction, which is called the insured and the borrower, and that premium is going to be set up in a loan chassis, and the monies are going to be borrowed for those premiums. So the individual is entering a contractual relationship with the debt provider to have those premiums funded on their behalf. Now, in order to do that, in order to make that work, this transaction must be what we refer to as fully secure. There are no transactions today, at least that occur within the light of day, that are not fully secured. Fully secured being defined as fully collateralized. Fully collateralized by the combination of what we refer to as the acceptable policy cash surrender value, and perhaps, in traditional financing especially, some other form of gap collateral. Another distortion that we want to wash away very quickly is that financing is not free insurance. There is nothing engineered today, again, that's completely transparent and done in a forthright manner, which is free insurance. There is a debt obligation there, and any debt provider in this industry wants to be repaid. We're going to talk a little bit about how they get repaid. But this is not free insurance. This is not a free lunch. The other object I want to deal with rather quickly is that there conceptually is a thought process that premium finance has this very narrow application. That is, it's for funding policies used in very specific situations and doesn't have broad base or a broad foundation in which you can use it for. And that's simply not the case. Pretty much any planning scenario, any objective that you're seeking for a client can be handled via financing. That includes individual estate planning, individual situations where people are looking for tax-free retirement income, corporate application, whether it's a company or a full operating entity, group transactions, non-qualified deferred compensation, key purchases. So the bottom line is that financing can be applied in pretty much any given situation that you use a high cash value life insurance policy for. The main principles we're going to talk about, and a few of these you're going to hear me say over and over again, but the big one is certainly, one key aspect of it is what we refer to as leverage. And leverage is basically that the individual earning one of these transactions is still going to have an out-of-pocket contribution. We are not talking about a situation here, either on the traditional or larger case platform or what we're talking about today with the IRA. We're not talking about a situation where the person is not paying anything. They are going to be paying something. And that amount, if you will, relative to the premium sell, for example, is one marker that we look at and analyze would be the leverage, the degree, the percentage, if you will, the premium sell that an individual is contributing towards this. Now, generally speaking, all of the factors being equal, lower the out-of-pocket contribution as a percentage of premium means more leverage. When you increase the person's relative out-of-pocket towards any kind of loan arrangement, you are decreasing leverage. And oh, by the way, when we talk about leverage and we talk about these ratios and things like that, we're also talking about risk. Because when we change leverage, we change these ratios, we're also altering the degree of risk in the transaction. Retained capital is the concept that the out-of-pocket solve as a percentage of the premium is certainly below usually what they would pay on an out-of-pocket basis to support a near similar death benefit, whether it's a straight UL policy or some other product chassis. So the idea is there's a differential between the out-of-pocket and the financing arrangement and what this person would write a check for, basically, not using financing. A lot of the high-end sales, the big ones that we do, are pure opportunity cost plays. The individual entering the transaction more or less comes to the conclusion they can earn a higher rate of return on their money. So instead of funding 100% of the premium, they're going to contribute some degree of out-of-pocket the percentage premium. The differential between those two is the retained capital that can be used for any number of purposes. And of course, we're not looking to do financing to add another layer of documents or another layer of complexity. We're looking at an end state benefit. We're essentially looking to amplify a given result. So we're taking the IUL chassis, if you will, and we're amplifying or magnifying the results of that. Now, when we talk about the Insured Retirement Advantage, we are talking about a distinctly different client segment than we do in a larger case. These are individuals that do not have necessarily a net worth in excess of $5 million. We do situations, and we've been involved with many transactions where the person's net worth is closer to $1 million. However, as we go through this process a little bit and we go through one of the loan models that I'm going to discuss, they do have to have income, of course, that's going to reach a certain threshold, because there is going to be a focus on the amount of out-of-pocket that's going to be necessary to support the loan. And when you overlay that with their income, we want to make sure we're not recommending, proposing, or putting somebody in a transaction that's going to create financial strain. But these are very different markers, if you will, from an underwriting standpoint. And the carrier partners that we've worked with on this particular loan arrangement are working in tandem with Levinson and us to try to make sure that we've got all these points aligned correctly. I would say the average net worth of the individuals we've done to date on this, and we've done hundreds of cases, is probably right around 1.25 to 1.5 million. Income is usually in excess of 150,000. You can go below in some cases, but that's kind of the sweet spot. As far as the general makeup, the clients, a lot of professionals, doctors, attorneys, things like that. A segment, for all intents and purposes, we call the emerging affluent. We try to have the face amount orchestrated in increments going up to $4 million in $500,000 breakpoints. So the lowest face amount is 1 million, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, and 4. The minimum premium solved to support the arrangement is $50,000 on a 10-pay non-MEC schedule. 10-pay non-MEC. So just like traditional financing, we are going to fund these policies on a relative short pay basis and push as much premium as possible into the policy. Because back to a very early point I made, One of the frontline purposes, one frontline sources of collateral is the policy cash surrender value. So we're looking to drive that factor. Maximum issue age 60, we've got a few people above 60 approved, but that would be, when you start getting into financing and getting above 60, especially 65 or so, you've got a number of things that start to work against you. So ideally the person would be a maximum issue age of 60. Say the average age of what we've done to date is probably about 45. Interest rates, which of course is very integral, and we'll talk about this in detail, but one of the aspects of doing non-traditional financing, meaning getting out of the super large case world, is to try to control the cost of the money. Because in our business, bigger the case, as being defined usually by the premium solve, which over a period of time from a lender's perspective is going to determine the size of the loan. Larger the loan, generally speaking, you can pursue lower interest rates. And when we talk about interest rates, we're really talking about two pieces here. We're talking about the benchmark or the reference rate, which in most cases is going to be the London Interbank Offer Rate. And then you talk about this other piece to it, and that's the spread. That's the amount the lender is going to have to add to that benchmark. And those two put together is what your all-in rate or your total interest rate is. Now, as you're going to see when we start going through a specific case example, when we start talking about cases that are in these premium levels, and again, I want to underscore, these are still good cases, but they are going to be lower premium solves than what we see in the jumbo case market. So if you did not have a dedicated chassis, if you did not have a specific methodology to deal with cases of this size, the interest rate spread is going to be relatively higher, which puts pressure, as we call it, or stress on the entire arrangement. But working in concert with our primary debt provider, we've got an interest rate spread on these loans of 185 over 1 year LIBOR, which for those that are familiar with the financing world is a hyper-competitive rate, very competitive interest rate. We put on an initial 10-year term, which goes to an auto-renewal basis, because most of these loans, when you map them out over a period of time, are probably going to go beyond 10 years in tenure. There are no origination and no other fees associated with it. There is a administration fee assigned by the lender, but nothing up front that the client has to pay. Also, there's one-time financial underwriting. So we're going to collect some information on the individual up front, and unless there's been some massive material change to their financial situation, we don't have to revisit that. So there's no annual requalification, as they call it in our industry. So you don't have to resend tax returns. You don't have to submit financial reporting and things like that year over year over year. One of the other keys to it is how these loans are made. The vast majority of premium finance loans are not, I repeat, they are not made to named individuals. Loans are typically made to some entity. In our industry, the way the loan is structured is revolving around the entity. How the loan is put together, basically. How is the loan made? Now, as far as the loan structure is concerned, the planning objective will define this, meaning what are you trying to solve for your client? Let's take a fairly straightforward situation. They are going to need a policy for death benefit purposes, estate planning, if you will. And if we take a classic framework for that, we see quite a few irrevocable life insurance trusts being used as the policy owner. But also, when you're putting the loan together, the loan will be made to the ILET as well. That will be the borrowing entity. Now, if you're not in that framework, and you're maybe over into a company situation or something like that, you may have an organization that's looking to build some kind of non-qualified deferred compensation or key person protection and things like that. So in that setting, you may introduce some form of an LLC, for example, or you may use a full operating entity. Maybe that policy is more geared towards perhaps income generation and things like that. So one of the key aspects of the IRA is that it allows the same degree of flexibility and the same number of options as our traditional structure does. No restrictions in that regard. It mimics what you can do on the traditional side. So it can be applied in any given situation you may need. Just be aware that the loan is going to be made to one of these entities, one type of entity. and there will be underwriting that will be focused on that. So back to my previous example, in the case of the ILIT being the borrowing entity, the trustee of that trust will have some degree of responsibility in the transaction. Not necessarily positioned as a guarantor or hold liability, but they will be involved in the transaction. Same as with an LLC, for example. We're going to be talking about the managing members and things like that. We don't have to go into excruciating detail on that call on this, but we work through all these details with you. Quick overview of the transaction. This is going to be fairly similar for both traditional and also when we talk about the insured retirement advantage. One of the key aspects I just really focus on this is that we do recommend that insurance folks have additional advisors involved. You can decide to what extent, but this is still structured finance. There is still going to be loan documentation involved. And there is a recommendation, at least from our standpoint, you may want to have other people involved with this, like an attorney, for example, to review the loan documentation. You may have to work in concert with an accountant or a CPA, for example, to try to review certain aspects of it. There's a fine balancing point there, though, because I've found that accountants can sometimes be a business prevention exercise. So you've got to kind of balance those concerns out. But again, most insurance people are not trained in structured finance. And these transactions, despite their relatively smaller size, and let's say the jumbo market, they still add, again, the degree of complexity. And the loan documents cannot be simply completely cleared most individuals too. So having another advisor involved is highly recommended. How do we get started? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take in information, a fact pattern, if you will. So you're going to outline the circumstances, the general demographics of the individual entering the transaction. We would like to know, working with Levinson and those folks, what you're planning to do with it. Is it an estate planning situation? If it's not an estate planning situation, is it a corporate situation, et cetera? Once you kind of lay that fact pattern out and kind of the targeted amount, like, what is a DB target? Maybe have a premium solve in mind. You set a basic framework in which we can operate with. Then from there, what we're going to do is we have a group of people working in concert with Levinson to be able to design the base sales ledger. So we develop the illustrations here. Then we take that data and we put it into what's called our loan modeling system. So essentially what we're doing is we're overlaying the policy information with a prospective loan. It maps out how the collateral falls out, interest, all the prospective components of the transaction will be laid out in a fairly logical fashion. We'll also put in an exit strategy and any income or other scenarios that are going to be necessary. Now here really is kind of the nuts and bolts of the output. Now this is going to be a little small to read in some cases, so what I'm going to do when I switch to the next page, just to give you a heads up, I'm going to expand one section of this. But this is the output that you'd see from our systems. And this I do want to spend a fair amount of time on. So just moving left to right, we're going to have like the standard output from the illustration itself. In this case, we've got a 10-pay non-MEX solve of $71,815. We've got an initial death benefit of $1.5 million. This is an indexed universal life insurance chassis from Ameritas. Then I'm going to go through the components that are integral to the insured retirement advantage. And before I go to this next slide, the main thing that I want to point out, and this is kind of the whole pivot point of the entire presentation, is you're going to go over to the right side of the screen and you're going to see a column titled Estimated Collateral Range. When you look at the estimated collateral range, you're going to notice it's populated with zeros. That is, from an illustrative perspective, the primary objective of what we try to do with the insured retirement advantage. That is, the way this loan and the framework of which it's built upon results in an illustrated outcome in which the only collateral for the transaction is predicated upon the lender acceptable policy cash surrender value. That is uniquely and distinctly different than what you see in most traditional transactions. In most of the larger cases, you will always usually, there's some circumstances you won't, but the vast majority of cases are going to illustrate something that we refer to as gap collateral. Gap collateral is going to be some other form of pre-vetted collateral that's going to have to be posted by the borrower or the guarantor to support the transaction. So for a period of time in the traditional or the larger deals, you're going to have two forms of collateral. You're going to have the lender acceptable policy CSV and you're going to have this gap collateral. Now, the way the gap collateral typically behaves is kind of a bell-shaped curve. It'll rise up, get to a certain magnitude, and then decline over a period of time. Hopefully, the policy variables work that the cash surrender value becomes the sole basis of collateral. In the Insured Retirement Advantage, it is designed from the outset, in which our outcome hopefully is just the policy CSV supporting the entire loan arrangement. So there is, at the outset of the transaction, there is no vetting and there is no other gap collateral being provided. One of the key aspects of this, if not the key aspect, is to get an outcome like this, you have to do one thing, and one thing primarily, and that is to control the loan balance. Control the loan balance vis-a-vis the policy cash surrender value. When you control the loan balance to a certain extent, our overriding goal is to keep the loan balance below the policy CSV by a certain ratio. Because that policy CSV we are relying upon over a period of time to provide the sole basis of collateral for the transaction. Now let's go into a little bit more detail. So this pulls out certain pieces of what you just looked at. You'll see the premium solve, that's a 10-pay non-MEC solve. You see the interest rate. Again, this is being projected right now at a 200 or 2% one-year LIBOR rate plus the designated spread on the structure of 185. So we're at an all-in rate of 3.85. There's projected interest. Now let's take a look at this column. Annual client contribution of $36,000, in this case for 10 years. Back to our other discussion or point that I made regarding leverage. One of the aspects of the IRA, and this is critical to controlling the loan balance, is the leverage ratio is a relatively high percentage of the premium solve. In effect, the Insured Retirement Advantage is a deleveraging technique. Deleveraging. We are increasing the relative out-of-pocket to support the loan. In most traditional or large cases, we are not going to usually model this level of out-of-pocket. The out-of-pocket usually is going to range anywhere from 10% to maybe low 20% as a percentage of premium. And of course, that leads to other things, which we won't go over today. But with the Insured Retirement Advantage, roughly speaking, the out-of-pocket to support the loan will be about 50% of the premium solve. Now, it varies based on underwriting designation, carriers, and things like that. But again, the out-of-pocket as a percentage of premium is higher than what you see in most traditional loan structures. Again, deleveraging. Also reducing risk. One of the aspects of this is that the carriers, the life insurance companies, about 8 to 10 years ago, took a very dedicated effort to put guardrails, if you will, or compliance strictures around financing. I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying that they became much more attentive to the way financing was done and the momentum that financing was building over a period of time too. So what they did was they built certain parameters around financing. And most of them are going to stick to the high net worth segment. So when we went to our carriers and we said, I tell you what, we want to introduce something that's going to serve a markedly different client segment. Their chief concern, their primary concern was risk management. The carriers are concerned about people getting involved in transactions of which they could not financially support. Carriers want to keep the policies on the books. Carriers do not want to get involved in difficult situations, if you will. You can read between the lines there. But mainly, they want us to be able to control risk in some fashion. If we're going to use financing for a situation with a young physician who's worth about $1.5 million, although it has relatively high earning income and things like that, he still doesn't have, or she doesn't still have the balance sheet to support all the aspects of a traditional structure, with one of the key ones being gap collateral. So they said to us, well, if we can put together the bits and pieces in a certain way to dramatically lower the risk of the transaction, we could be interested in that. And that's what we were able to accomplish. Now, mechanically, let's go through this. So we look at the annual contribution of $36,000. Well, where does that go? How is it handled? How is it facilitated? So if you look at the projected loan interest for a period of time, you'll notice that the out-of-pocket more than covers the interest. It's above and beyond the interest. But one of the things you need to look at then is let's take a look at the loan balance. That's the other column titled Projected End of Year Loan Balance. You will notice that the loan balance in year 2, year 3, year 4, the loan balance is going down. It is not going up. It is going down. That you typically don't see in most financing transactions. So go back to the large case market where we're using more leverage, you'll typically see the interest not necessarily being entirely covered by the out-of-pocket, and you'll typically see the loan balance increasing over a period of time due to additional premiums being paid, plus also additional interest being rolled in the loan. So what we're doing here is the out-of-pocket is set at a certain level in which it's covering the interest, but also amortizing or lowering the loan balance. Back to the other point that I made. If we're lowering the loan balance, we're controlling the loan balance. We're keeping the loan balance within a certain range of the policy CSV, so our illustrated outcome is no gap collateral. Now, the other thing I should focus on too is that loan balance itself, because if you're looking carefully, you'll notice that the loan balance is considerably higher than the premium solved in the first year. So what's happening there? Well, back to interest rates. Most debt providers are not structured, built, or even accepting of these premium solves. Great case, by the way, not being dismissive of the case, but when you build these debt facilities, there's a certain level of efficiency, and that efficiency tends to drop off dramatically when you get below $200,000 premium solves. So the thought of financing, for example, the lower limit of our IRA at $50,000, well, most can't support that. So what we had to do is we had to develop a technique with our debt provider to be able to essentially not only finance cases at this level, but find a way to drive the interest rate spread down. So what we do in the first year is we orchestrate a loan in the first year that's a multiple of the premium solve. So what happens is the loan is a multiple of the premium solve, and that's placed on deposit with the lender. Now, that does not mean that money is going to the carrier. It's not sitting in a PDA, and it's not being put to the company as premium. The premium is going to be funded exactly as it's indicated, $78.15 on an annual basis. But you'll have some residual amount in the early years sitting in this deposit account. And the deposit account is drained down over a period of time. That's why you see the demand deposit account balance eventually go to zero. When it goes to zero, at that point in time, new premium is going to be drawn down or lent, and you have the loan balance is eventually going to start to pick up to some extent. But again, the core point of this is we had to find a method to drive down the interest rate spread. So we negotiated this with our debt provider, is if we get the larger loan up front, we can drive the spread down. Now, one of the questions or comments we always get about this is that, well, my client's paying more interest now. Well, that is true, but number one, you can't typically finance these premiums, and number two, the difference between an interest rate spread of 185 and whatever it would be, even for a $200,000 premium solve, is quite dramatic. We're talking at least 100 basis points or more. And if you amplify that over a period of time, that's a considerable amount of interest savings. I can show you quantifiably it's not even close if we can drive the interest rate spread and use this technique. So that's the entire basis of this. The other aspect that we will produce, or illustrate at least, will be some form of loan exit. Now, this is not meant to indicate this is the loan exit. Now, what we mean by exit strategy and loan exit is how you're going to pay the loan back. These lenders do like to be repaid back at some point in time. These loans are not made to be into perpetuity. There has to be a point in time where you should pay them back. So as we sit here today, though, we've got to illustrate them in some certain fashion. So what we do in almost all our presentations is we will show a participating policy loan as a potential method of repayment. I say potential because this is not set. This is not contractually fixed. This is just one option. I'm not going to go, hopefully you understand the details of participating policy loans, but what you see there, the 628996 further down the sheet, that shows a par loan. So you're taking a loan from the policy to potentially pay back the third-party lender. Now, my experience over these many years is that most people do not pay these loans back with par loans of this magnitude. They have outside funds. They have multiple exit strategies. We make the same recommendations on the IRA cases that we do with large cases. That is, an individual should have multiple exit strategies. Do not just rely on these loans. Because participating policy loans, again, if you have a full understanding of these, have a degree of risk associated with themselves. So they should be applied with caution. We're just trying to illustrate a possibility. Now, also in this case, if we go back to our previous slide, this case design is an income-oriented design. This is not a DB-oriented solve or a death benefit-oriented solve. So we're showing one par loan as a potential takeout for the premium finance loan. So at that point in time, at year 15, the lender, the debt provider, is out of the equation. They've been repaid in some fashion. Now the owner of this policy, the collateral assignment is released, and they can do anything they want. So the owner will decide on how this occurs. Now, when we illustrate this, when we illustrated this example, we did an income orientation. So mechanically, we reduce the death benefit, we change the death benefit option. We also show a series of participating policy loans to produce possible income, and that's where you see the $100,000. So in this case, we're showing an initial par loan exit strategy, and then after that, a series of income solves, again from par loans. Now, we're not doing this too in just to, again, make a transaction more complicated. We do want to show an end state benefit. So when we produce these reports, we are going to generally compare and contrast the output or the outcome of using leverage or using enhanced funding, using financing versus not doing that. So our illustrators will take that same out-of-pocket, this $36,000, and make solves, again, just based on that premium. $36,000 is no longer positioned as an out-of-pocket for a financing structure. The $36,000 is simply using funding for a policy. The same policy chassis too, by the way. And we show kind of the difference, as we have another chart that does that. Now, another part of this too is that the out-of-pocket, what you're looking at now is the same exact case, okay? It's the same exact policy, etc. But the out-of-pocket's been changed in its duration. So one of the key options of the IRA is the flexibility to define your duration of out-of-pocket. The minimum that we support is 5 years. This is what you're looking at. You're looking at the 5 pay out-of-pocket. You'll also key on the fact that the out-of-pocket amount is exactly the same. So we're back to $36,000. Just in the first example we spent most of our time on, $36,000 was for 10 years. In this situation, the $36,000 is for 5 years. Now let's talk about the math a little bit. Our loan balance, our projected loan balance on the 10 pay was $628,996. That was the payoff. On the 5 pay, we're up to $865,647. So back to loan balance control. Lower out of pocket, all the same variable set, the loan balance will be higher. That doesn't mean we can't drive similar results, meaning we still are going to show a par loan, and in this case, we're also going to show an income solve. You'll also note, of course, that the par loan being lower as a potential takeout amount, that's the $865,647, is going to also lead to a lower possibility of income generation. You notice $75,000 versus $100,000. So we will let you define the out-of-pocket period. It could be between 5 and 10 years, so we can do 7, 8, etc. But those are the two options. But by definition, just mathematics involved here, $36,000 10 pay is going to control the loan balance to a greater extent. But we had a number of requests to be able to provide an option to shorten the duration of that payment period. And we delivered this as well. So when we have requests come in, unless our designers are instructed otherwise, we will generate 4 loan models. We'll generate 10 pay DB, 10 pay income, 5 pay DB, 5 pay income. So you have all the various options available. Now, if the case gains traction, what I mean by that is we get paperwork and things like that in. We will just walk right through and work with Levinson. They will certainly handle the underwriting side from the carrier perspective, push that through, and then we'll be working in tandem with them on all the paperwork that's required for the loan. And again, with the IRA, when you move the complication, if you will, gap collateral out of the picture, these are much easier transactions to process. Also, the speed of processing these transactions is much quicker than traditional cases. Because I will tell you from great experience, one of the major variables you have to deal with the bigger cases is gap collateral. It's going to be one thing that bogs the transaction down to the offset. It's also going to be one of the most difficult things to manage over the term of the loan. When you move gap collateral out of the picture, it kind of speeds things up a little bit. Now back to Bill's kind of keying on this, and this is one of the key questions we get is, well, you know, who should I sell this to? Who should I work with? Now, I just said something that I wanted to point out and emphasize is that, remember, we are still using a life insurance chassis. We're just finding an alternative way to fund it. People, when they start getting involved in financing, get too bogged down in the thought process that they're selling financing. You are not selling financing. You are using a different funding methodology. All the nuts and bolts, all the wonderful things about a high-value life, high-quality life insurance product, like the IULs, is still there. You're just finding a different way to fund it. But you're also amplifying the results. Because think about it, back to our other example. That out-of-pocket contribution is about 50% of the premium self. So they're getting the same degree of benefit that you get off that 10-pay non-max solve for 50% of the outlay. That is the big thrust of this. And my position is that these types of clients, these types of customers, you are talking to all the time. They could be your doctor, they could be your attorney, they could be the business owner that's right next to you. It's such a wider perspective from a marketing perspective compared to like the traditional stuff, where those people really at the end of the day don't come along all that often. And I'll tell you, we work with thousands of people, and most agents maybe average 1 or 2 cases a year. We got people doing 4 to 5 cases a month with this chassis, just because you've got such a broader scope of people to be able to work with. And you don't erase everything you normally do. You diagnose the planning situation. You understand what they're trying to do. You work towards a solution. But you provide them this leveraging strategy to really just take it to another level. Basically, our position is if you have anybody that's near an annual outlay willing to stroke a check for $25,000, the IRA should be presented. Now, $25,000, why did I mention that? Back to our minimum premium solve of $50,000 for a standalone case. You take half that, and that's going to give you your approximate out-of-pocket to support the loan. Now, I will make one point about that. We can go below $50,000 if we have like a group setting, or we can collate some cases together. We've done a number of small company cases where we had key employees. We can do that. We can bunch them together, so to speak, and use the same borrowing vehicle. We can actually go above the $50,000. But let's just stick on a single case chassis. So if you have somebody that's willing to pay $25,000 a year to support a life insurance policy, this should be a given. For a couple things. I mean, you're going to double the output, plus also in most cases, you're going to be able to run the out-of-pocket for a relatively short duration. Heck, if you're talking about a standard GUL chassis or something like that, the premium is going to be due for a lot longer than 5 to 10 years, right? So again, the clients are right in front of you. You're just talking about a different form of application. Now, as far as the tools are concerned that you're going to have support with, is that we've got a lot of collateral material that you can use in the field. We've got this 2-page summary. This can be customized in various formats. That goes over pretty much everything I've talked about today, obviously done a little bit differently. This also has been very popular. Typically speaking, we've really focused on the financial services professional and creating collateral material. But a number of months ago, we had a high demand to create like a consumer level piece. So we do have an entire brochure, a multi-page brochure that talks about enhanced funding in a very general fashion, has a number of different flow charts in it, compares and positions the life insurance chassis with different alternatives and things like that. So this has been exceedingly popular. This can also be customized for your use. And oh, by the way, when we generate the loan models, you can ask to have this brochure actually populated with the data from that loan model. So you create an entirely customized presentation for your client. That'd be it, Bill.
That was excellent. Excellent job, Dale. We really appreciate your time. Okay, so what I would like to do now is we got a few minutes left, and I want to show everyone, okay, exactly what we all need to do to find the first prospect that we're going to speak to. So Joe's going to dive in to our prospecting platform, okay, to show everybody what to look for and how you can utilize. We literally have a database of millions and millions of potential prospects for you to speak to. We're also going to show you where to go for the premium finance resources that we offer, where you can co-brand some of this marketing material. And I also want to just say one more thing, and then Joe's going to take the wheel. You know, Dale dives in deep. He gives you all the facts here, and very analytical, very sharp guy. We've known each other for a while. We've worked with North Star for a long time now. But, you know, keep one thing in mind, okay? It's your job to go out and find the prospect that reaches, let's say, our minimum criteria here with at least $1 million of net worth, maybe that makes a minimum of $150,000 a year, and that's at least standard or better, health-wise. You find the right person, we will help you pre-qualify, and then boom, we dive in and they do all of the work. Between Levinson and Northstar, you don't have to do much, okay, except coordinate with the prospect or client, okay? And even if the prospect has an existing universal life or IUL, that's okay. This makes for an even better conversation because you can increase his or her death benefit and have the client ultimately pay about the same premium. So it's really a slam dunk. You can 1035 the cash values into the new policy, and it's literally a slam dunk sale. You just made yourself $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. So there's a lot of opportunities here, but just think very black and white here. You don't have to look under the covers and start playing with the numbers, and we will do all of that for you. Okay, you just find the prospect. Okay, with that said, Joe's going to show you exactly where the tools are, how to start marketing, and then where to go so you can download your list of prospects. Joe?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. So real quick on CarrieLevinson.com, underneath the product tab, we've got a section named Premium Finance Resources. You can go in here and look at everything we just covered, questionnaires, guides, really fact-finding information for clients. We also have a Premium Finance Quote Request. On the bottom right there, you can fill out some of your client's information. You can chat with our marketing team and see if it's a viable case. So that's really your first place to start. We'll be sending that link out in this afternoon's thank you email. In addition to that, Bill mentioned a great prospecting tool to our agency automator platform. What I love about this system, very simple, easy to use, and as a Levinson agent, you have access. Actually, today, if you're not already up and running, you can sign up for the platform. There's two different databases inside of Agency Automator. The first of which is the consumer prospecting database. That's individual records, over 25 million records there. And the bottom one is even more interesting, is the business prospect database. These are business owners. You can go through and search all the demographics. Most importantly, what I've highlighted on the bottom of this screen is where it says net worth and income. You can actually go through and sort by net worth, income. You can even look at if someone owns a home, what the value is. And the whole point is you're finding local prospects in your area that meet that criteria. So business owners, individuals, they're going to be those high net worth people that you're looking to speak to. The best part is inside of our Agency Automator platform, we have about 2,000 different email campaigns you can click. All your information is updated. You can touch base with those people in real time. You not only get their email, you get their phone number, you get their physical address, and for those business owners, you can look at the number of employees, the number of years they've been in the business, so you can really target and drill down on a specific campaign to find those local prospects that might be a great candidate once you learn enough to be dangerous with the whole premium finance scenario. So great way to actually break into that marketplace and find new people to talk to about that platform. Now, that Agency Automator tool that I mentioned, if you want to learn more about that or how to dive in, we do trainings every single day of the week, Monday through Friday. Those are listed right on the screen in front of you. Most importantly, Friday is actually the best practices training. That will show you how to dive in and do what other agents are using inside of that platform to be successful. And then Thursday, prospecting and agent recruiting, you can actually learn more about using that prospecting tool I just touched on to uncover new people. And of course, entering in your zip code, finding people in a 20 or 30 or 40 mile radius is extremely helpful to find those local prospects. At the bottom here, we've got some awesome upcoming webinars. Next week, the 24th at 2 p.m., we're talking about insurance technology to grow your business. That's covering e-applications, drop tickets, e-policy delivery, some great underwriting tools, and of course, our Sell While You Sleep Insure Me Now Direct platform. And then the following week, I think this ties in perfectly with today's webinar, focusing on IUL sales strategies, a lot of the products you're going to be using for premium financing, especially with a focus on living benefit features. That's the 29th at 2 p.m. Eastern. And that guest speaker that's going to be on that call is probably one of the best guest speakers that we've had on an IUL webinar to understand the dynamics of the product and how it works, and really developing some new sales ideas and concepts. So great resources. Also, I do want to mention before I hand it over to Bill, some upcoming live training events on the 22nd of October, a local meeting down here in Boca Raton, Florida. We're covering the One America hybrid link benefit products. We have a lunch training, so we'll send you the link to sign up in today's thank you email. It's a great way to be able to learn more about that product and kind of meet some of the team members here at Levinson. At the bottom there, November 12th, we're covering top term life marketing sales strategies. That's going to be co-hosted by Banner Life, again in Boca Raton, Florida. You can sign up for that meeting, absolutely free to attend both of those meetings. You'll walk away with some awesome sales ideas around those two products and some great ways to reach new customers and new clients.
Okay, good stuff, Joe. Thank you. So we're just about done here, and I want to give you just a couple things to walk away with. We had an agent here earlier this morning. In fact, he's probably on the call by now. He drove in from Jacksonville. And, you know, what's funny is he's a MDRT, top of the table agent, great guy, been in the business forever. And, you know, we're sitting here in the office, and obviously we know we have the Premium Finance webinar coming up here. And so we're just talking. His name's Richard. And I said, by the way, you know, are you doing anything, or do you know about, you know, life settlements? And he says, oh, you know, I stay away from that. It just never works out for me. And I said, you know, it's fine. You know, we don't try to push anything, but it is my job to make our agents aware of what we have. So I told him what just happened about, it's been about 5-6 weeks now. We had an agent call in, okay? He was calling in for a client. There was a universal life product that the client had in force, and the client was about to let the policy lapse, okay? And it wanted some guaranteed issue or simplified issue options for the client. And the client had a form of pancreatic cancer. So obviously, the client's not going to be around much longer. So instead of just running these quotes for guaranteed issue, we said, wait a minute, why don't we look at selling the policy, okay? Turns out the policy was $250,000 of death benefit. We were able to get a $62,000 check to the client, okay, when they thought that there was nothing left. All right, they were literally going to let the policy lapse. They couldn't afford the premium. They were looking at guaranteed issue rates, okay, and we came in, and the agent literally looked like Superman in the client's eyes, because he literally saved the day and turned a zero into a check for $60,000 and change. Okay, so just you need to think about this stuff. These are great examples and stories of how, if you come across that universal life, depending on the client's health and age, that could be a great life settlement option. And then I said, Richard, what about premium finance? And he said, oh, Bill, you know, where I live in this part of town, most of my clients aren't worth, you know, $7 to $10 million. I said, Rich, I said, they have a program that starts at $1 million of net worth for the right candidate. And he said, no way, tell me more. So next thing you know, he's writing down on a piece of paper 7 people he's going to talk to about this premium finance option called the IRA from Northstar. Okay, so anyway, the point is, keep this stuff top of mind, because your book or your clients or friends or networking group, you have candidates here for all of these types of situations, but you have to know the basics to be dangerous. Okay, we're going to end with this. We have our Sell While You Sleep platform. We just added another carrier, okay, a 4th carrier. We now have 12 different products. So this is literally the new Amazon for insurance, but the difference is it's built for you, the agent, okay? The new company, I can't tell you the name, but I will tell you this. Think of baby food, okay? We're launching this within the next 6 weeks, our 4th carrier, up to 12 products. The final slide here is our Positive Tuesday quote. And I'm going to end with one more thing. And I hate to rant, but one last thing. When it comes to premium finance, okay, there's a lot of competitors now, other IMOs, MGAs, calling themselves the premium finance professionals, and they hire some guy or girl in their 3rd bedroom in the middle of Cedar Rapids, and they call themselves a premium finance professional. Okay. Now, what you don't know a lot of times is they also sell direct to consumer. So the point is, ask the right questions. If they want you to give up 30, 40, 50% of a case, red flag, something's wrong. A great question for you to ask, okay, as well, say, hey, Bob, by the way, what are the last 10 premium finance cases that you have put together successfully? Okay. And you don't have to give me names, but tell me a little bit about them. What carriers, what the premium look like, what programs you use. Most of the time, you're going to find them stuttering. Okay. So ask the right questions. There's a reason why we've done our due diligence and we partnered up with North Star. Okay. So just remember that I said that. Okay. With that said, we're going to end with this. In order to make the top 5%, you must be willing to do what the bottom 95% won't. With that said, have a great rest of the week, a good weekend, great selling. Take care, and thanks again.